Okay, next we have the Nine of Wands. Now, the nine is, again, as we talked about yesterday, associated with Yesod, which is about the foundation, which is it is on the middle pillar, and so it's a harmonized uh, interaction between masculine and feminine. But at this point, we're so far down, and being associated with the moon, it is a fluctuation between the two. It's no longer a cooperated, cohesive effort as it is in Tiferet, in the sun. With the moon, it's much more the polarity between them. It still works in a unified effort, but it's so the energies are so distinctly separate that you cannot necessarily say that the nine is purer. You can't than the six or the ace by any means. Um, so there's a lot of flux. The nines are of course associated with the astral plane and the astral in general, which is said to be a uh, very fluid substance or essence. It's always associated with the serpent. Just look at his depiction, Crowley's depiction of the universe card, number 21. That's all about manipulating the astral. So yeah, so with the number nine, we get the Lord of Strength, um, which I always find interesting just because, the traditional title of the major arcana is number 8 or number 11 is Strength. And of course, Crowley changed that all around. And now we have the idea of strength being applied to the Nine of Wands. It always kind of tickles me. But with the Nine of Wands, we get the moon in Sagittarius. As we talked about, Sagittarius is the sign associated well, we didn't talk about this, but Sagittarius is the sign most associated with willpower, being the archer, being the symbol of the bow and arrow. But we talked about how Sagittarius is a fairly flighty energy. Here we have the moon influencing Sagittarius doubly. Not only is it the moon in Sagittarius, but Yesod is also Luna itself. And so we have a very strong lunar energy being associated with Sagittarius. It is also, the nine, a harmonization to some extent of the 7, 8, and somewhat of the 6. It sort of is partaking of the 6. It is a reflection of the 6, but partaking more in the energies of the 7 and the 8. So instead of getting just a brutish burst of energy like we get in the 7, and instead of just a scattered but focused energy that we get in the 8, we get a balanced amount of energy applied over a course of time, you know, in a given direction, in a single direction. This is energy that has finally returned to the middle pillar. It finally has a purpose again. It finally has a goal. And there is finally a unified, consistent source of energy behind it. We're told that in this image, the force driving the main arrow is the sun of Tiferet, and the barb of the arrow is the moon. So that is, of course, really relevant. So the source of the energy, again, is consistent over a period of time, and it fights through illusion, it fights through fluctuation, it fights despite a lot of change. Despite all the fluctuation of the situation or the world in general, the force remains consistent and dedicated, and even though it's tired and exhausted at this point, it keeps going and is able to keep going because it's connected to a grounded source, that being the sun, which is the Lord of all life, really. So the nine is about strength. The nine in a reading is all about tired energy, but energy that keeps going regardless. Energy that has been used for a long period of time. The person usually feels worn out, but feels like they have to keep going anyway. Um, I do like Pamela Coleman Smith's image for this card, the tired warrior leaning on his staff, with all the other ones behind him, sort of waiting for the enemy to attack again. That's a pretty good image for this card. I've also heard the Nine of Wands be referred to as the endless stairs card, sort of like you're going up the world's longest flight of stairs, and you just keep wondering when you're going to get to the top, if you're ever going to get to the top, but you kind of can't do much else other than stay on the stairs. So that's an analogy that I often use for the Nine of Wands. It just, yeah, it represents energy sort of at its last gasp, not quite, but it has enough to keep going in a given direction. So yeah, next we will move on to the last of the Wand suit, the Ten of Wands.